Voter ID laws, a solution in search of a problem. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Michael Smerconish in for Chris Matthews. Leading off tonight, Carolina on our minds. Yesterday, the governor of North Carolina, Republican Pat McCrory, signed one of the most sweeping voting reform bills that we've seen on the books yet. 7 weeks after the Supreme Court crippled parts of the Voting Rights Act, which required states with a history of discrimination to pre-clearance by the Justice Department, Governor McCrory and his Republican legislature leaped at the opportunity to institute strict voting changes. Now, this bill doesn't stop at merely requiring a government ID to vote. It also reduces early voting by a week. It eliminates same-day registration, ends pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds, discontinues a statewide voter registration drive, and decreases public disclosure for dark money groups. Governor McCrory shied away from a traditional public signing ceremony, instead taking to YouTube to announce his signature and to also take some swipes at the bill's opponents.
Photo ID has become a part of our everyday life. You need a photo ID to board an airplane, to cash a check, or even apply for most government benefits. In fact, just recently, both Democrats and Republicans joined together to require a valid government-issued photo ID to buy Sudafed at your local corner drugstore. Let me be direct. Many of those from the extreme left who have been criticizing photo ID are using scare tactics. They're more interested in divisive politics than ensuring that no one's vote is disenfranchised by a fraudulent ballot.
Indeed, it seems that McCrory himself is doing the disenfranchising, since it's largely minority voters, in other words, Democrats, who'll be disproportionately affected. Opponents of this bill and more than 80 other voting reform bills like it proposed across the country this year believe this kind of legislation is designed to reduce voter turnout for key Democratic constituencies like minorities, the elderly, and students. Hillary Clinton, eager to jump back into the fray, last night delivered the most political remarks that she's made since leaving the State Department, and made clear what she believes is behind these new voter laws.
Legislators in North Carolina have pushed through a bill that reads like the greatest hits of voter suppression. Restricted early voting, no more same-day registration, or extending voting hours to accommodate long lines, stricter photo ID requirements that disqualify those issued by colleges or public assistance agencies, and it goes on and on.
Joining me to discuss this are former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell, who's an MSNBC political analyst, and Maggie Haberman, senior political reporter for Politico, who's an expert on the Clintons. Governor, I'm sure if I were to ask you if you were governor and this came to your desk, what would you do? And you'd tell me veto it. A different question. Are there any redeeming aspects of what this man has just signed into law?
None that I can think of, and some are absolutely impossible to explain. Why would you reduce the time period for early voting? Just to suppress voting. We should be, in this country, trying to increase voter participation. In a presidential election, we have 65% turnout. We think that's great, but that doesn't count the unregistered voters. We actually have less than 50% who vote for President of the United States. Look, the bottom line is, as you said in the intro, this is a solution looking for a problem. There is no problem. In Pennsylvania, our home state, Michael, when the Attorney General was asked in court to produce evidence of voter fraud by fraudulent voting, someone voting in someone's name, they admitted to the court in a consent decree that they could not find one example.
Well, Governor, let me prove what you're saying with data from North Carolina, because Republicans in North Carolina and many other states are determined to find a solution to a problem that doesn't appear to exist. Consider this. In 2012, 6.9 million ballots were cast in North Carolina in the general and two primary elections. The State Board of Elections said that only 121 alleged cases of voter fraud were referred to prosecutors, which means that of the nearly 7 million votes cast, alleged voter fraud accounted for just 0.00174% of the ballots. Even Governor McCrory conceded that the number of voter fraud cases are low This is what he wrote yesterday in the Raleigh News and Observer. Quote, even if the instances of misidentified people casting votes are low, that shouldn't prevent us from putting this non-burdensome safeguard in place. Quote, just because you haven't been robbed doesn't mean you shouldn't lock your doors at night or when you're away from home. Maggie, when I heard that, I said, okay, but neither should you go out and purchase an expensive security system or live in a bunker if you're not in a threatening neighborhood, to fit into his analogy.
Right. I mean, I think that none of these arguments are surprising. I think that you are seeing Republicans making a line here that they have for a while. I think that what you heard Senator Clinton, former Secretary Clinton, saying is also not surprising. This is where Democrats are. I do think this is going to be an ongoing fight. It is also a fight I think Democrats believe that they can win, and that is mostly on their side, despite the ruling in the Supreme Court.
Well, here's what I consider to be the miscalculation. You heard in the setup piece the audio where Governor McCreary refers the criticism as coming from the extreme left. I don't know what the extreme left is, but I know I'm not a part of it. I think people in the middle are offended by this. And Governor, I think that in 2012, this came back to bite them in the fanny because independents took a look and they said, hey, you know, play fair and win honestly and don't go trying to change the rules. Do you agree with me, Governor, that this impacted voters who are centrists?
No question. Not only did it impact centrist voters, but the best way to get someone to vote who isn't necessarily a regular voter is to tell them they can't vote. And the backlash had two effects. One, with independent voters, as you say, Michael, but two, when we were preparing in Pennsylvania, we eventually got the voter ID law stayed in court, but when we were preparing to try to deal with it, we found people absolutely adamant that they would do whatever it took to get the necessary identification to vote. And the turnout was far greater than we expected because I think people were ticked off. They were angry that someone was trying to take their votes away. But when Governor McCreary says it's non-burdensome, that's ridiculous. There were so many accounts published. People don't have photo ID. If they don't have cars, how are they going to get to motor vehicle license bureau places to get the photo ID when they're infirmed? It's impossible to do in many cases. There was one 91-year-old woman who voted in 71 consecutive elections who didn't have voter ID. She went to the center to get it, and they told her she couldn't qualify because the only identification she had was her marriage license, and her marriage license had her listed in her maiden name, and she didn't have anything to prove that she was married in her current married name. Ridiculous.
Maggie, in Hillary Clinton's fiery speech to the American Bar Association, she said these laws are reviving old demons of discrimination, insisting that legislation like the North Carolina law is a deliberate and unnecessary barrier to voting.
Right.
In the years since, we've seen a sweeping effort across our country to obstruct new obstacles to voting, often under cover of addressing a phantom epidemic of election fraud. Now, not every obstacle is related to race, but anyone who says that racial discrimination is no longer a problem in American elections must not be paying attention.
You surprised by her subject matter? There are a lot of things she could have used to address the ABA.
I'm not surprised by her subject matter per se. I am surprised by something. You hit it on the head earlier, which is you said she is eager to jump into the fray. That is what is surprising. She doesn't need to be out there as early as she is right now. People around her have said, you know, she wants to take some time. She doesn't want to get sucked into every issue in Washington right now. But she is really putting herself in front of a lot of these issues. She did at the Bar Association. She said there she's going to give a speech on the NSA debate right now, which is really which is really interesting given that in 2008, you know, the primary was lost in part because of the left's upset with her vote for the Iraq War. The NSA is an issue that liberals are very unhappy about, and a lot of the base of her party is very unhappy about. I am surprised that she is getting out there ahead of things as much as she is.
And very forward-looking.
Correct.
And she could easily go in and reminisce about being First Lady or talk about her tenure as the Secretary of State. Hey, Governor, I want to ask you the $64,000 question. Here it is. How much are these movements across the country by the GOP precipitated by census data pertaining to what's to come in this country in 2050 when whites become a minority as a group of the population?
Oh, I think a lot of it's being driven by that, Michael. But by the way, you're showing your age. No one under 35 knows what the $64,000 question was. But you're absolutely right. It's being driven by that, and it is truly despicable. I mean, I don't care where you are. And by the way, it's not just presidential elections they're aiming at in North Carolina. Kay Hagan is running for re-election as senator in 2014. It's going to be a close election. They're hoping that voter ID can cause Kay Hagan to lose her re-election bid. Well, I think North Carolina voters have a surprise coming for them because they ought to be ticked off, really ticked off.
Look at who gets disproportionately impacted. The North Carolina law will disproportionately affect non-white voters who tend to vote Democratic. The state's population is 30% non-white. But look at this. According to the North Carolina Secretary of State's office, 33% of those who voted early in 2012 were non-white. 46% of voters without a state-issued photo identification, non-white. And among voters who registered to vote the last day they cast their ballots, 56% were non-white. I think, Maggie, something else that's telling is that a college ID is not permissible. Right. So, I mean, to me, that's what exposes this for what it really is. I personally don't have a problem with saying show an ID when you vote, but you ought to take into consideration what form of identification the folks in that particular community are most likely to possess. And if they don't drive cars because they don't own cars, and sorry if I'm preaching at you, then it shouldn't be the voter ID.
I mean, without getting into motive on either side, there is no question that there are certain core constituencies that are affected, just as you said. And in many of those cases, certainly younger voters, as we just saw, those are voters who have been voting, especially in national elections, Democratic. And so I think that that is going to be a real issue of exactly whose constituencies are impacted here. And I think, you know, the question is what the governor said is, do people get upset about this, feel targeted by it, and turn out because of that?
All good points. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Governor. Nice to see you both.
Thank you.
Coming up, it's hard to ignore. Birtherism and race are playing a disturbingly big role in anti-Obama protests this summer. Even some Republicans are embarrassed by what they're seeing. Also, progressives were thrilled with Attorney General Eric Holder's speech against minimum sentencing laws, but not everyone agrees. They argue the new policy could give criminals more incentive to deal drugs.